This episode of Super Pulp Science has been brought to you by The Eye Collector, a comic series out of heavy metal. Go get The Eye Collector now. Co-created with GMB Kmichik.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how a genre gets made. I'm Gregory Kmichik. I'm here with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, known the world over as Chasing Artwork, and today in the studio, in person, in the flesh, because I know he likes the word flesh, is Dr. Jonathan Ball, writer and all-around creative collaborator on my new graphic novel, The Eye Collector, the writer of a collection of short stories, which, you know, won a few awards here and there recently, called The Lightning of Possible Storms, and a person who also hosts his own podcast, Writing the Wrong Way, and has a lot to say about what we do wrong in this studio, wouldn't you say, Justin?
Mm-hmm. What you do wrong the right way. Right?
Yeah. So welcome on the show, Jonathan. Now, you had just a moment ago told us you had a great topic for us to discuss. Why don't you introduce it? And
well, what I precisely said is I don't know if it's a great topic. It might be a terrible one. But my topic idea is it's something I notice people are interested or obsessed about in a way that maybe they don't comprehend, which is the difference between like a professional and an amateur. Like, when have I made it? You know, like, when am I a real writer?
Oh, interesting.
When am I a real artist?
Where's that threshold?
Yeah. And I think, like, in some ways, it's, and everyone has a different answer, right? And sometimes their answers are hurting them.
The
you know
publisher
what I mean?
of Printed in Blood in a previous episode, or maybe a future episode, depending on how this comes together, used the term people who are not yet ready for prime time.
Yeah. The SNL.
Sure.
Yeah. Quote,
and I think about it in different ways. But one thing I'm really interested in, rightly or wrongly, is the idea of like professionalism. I feel like we're in a culture now that doesn't value professionalism in the way that it maybe did. And I very much have always valued a level of professionalism. But I think like there's a level at which it starts to feel to people like, oh, it's not accessible now. So, like, the way I would define the difference between, like, an amateur...
We need an operational definition if we're going to go forward.
Yes.
Define, in your terms, professional.
So, I've thought about this a lot recently, and the way I actually have been writing on... I've got a website called strangerfiction.ca, and on that website, I've been writing, like, in little short, tiny, like, snippet chapters, kind of a little book about writing. And kind of the mindset of writing and things like this. So it's like a series of posts called Time to Write. And the way I define it in the kind of the first one is I was thinking back about like being a professional writer for like 20 years, right? So over like 20 years, what have I learned? I was thinking about this a little while ago. And I thought, you know, the core thing, like I've learned a lot of things. I've made a lot of mistakes. But I think the core thing I've learned in many ways is that there is a difference between, in my mind, there's a difference between like an amateur and a professional. And I would say like a professional does three things. One, I'm talking about writers, but I think it would apply to artists. You guys can tell me, I guess, what you think. But I would say a professional writer, one, calls himself a writer. Mm-hmm. Two, they write. And three, they don't get caught up in other things.
You're right. Oh, what I like about this
focus and
so I would say
simple definitions are the best definitions.
And I would say there's people that I think quote unquote you'd call professionals, like they make money, they're full-time writers, but I wouldn't consider them professionals because they get caught up in other things.
Okay, give me another thing that you might get caught up in.
Well, for example, in your fame.
Right.
I would say like there are writers that I've met who are not published and have made no money that I would consider professional. You know, they write, they call themselves a writer, they don't get caught up in other things. And then there's people who they've had a lot of success, but I wouldn't consider them professionals because they're getting caught up in other things. I can see them getting caught up on Twitter and other things.
Fame
and it starts to
the mask that eats the face.
Or whatever. Like there's different things. People get caught up in making money sometimes even, you know. And I think it's a struggle to stay professional. Right? It's a struggle to write and
Are we talking then
call
about
yourself a writer and not get caught up in other things.
discipline? That's
I
really
think
what we're
in many
talking
ways it's a discipline, but I think it kind of goes beyond it a little bit. Because I don't mean you have to write every day or you have to be like producing 1,000 words a day or anything like that necessarily. Although I think that consistency is important. I think that it has to do with like your mentality and a bearing more than discipline, if that makes sense. Discipline is part of it, but I think the bearing that you have, or the attitudes you have, the things you pay attention to and don't pay attention to start to come into play.
And when you say bearing, you mean it in its literal sense, like the direction that it takes you?
The direction it takes you, and also I think like how you approach people or approach the industry. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity in creative industries to get caught up in things that aren't really in service of the work. Like, because the way I look at it as a person who, you know, I'm a writer, I like to call myself a writer. I don't call myself an artist, but I think what I do has a level of artistry, and I'm very interested in
I don't make such a
mastering
fine
the
line
craft.
because I do both. I just consider, you know, writing art, and art is art, and drawing's art, and
but I mean, like,
ceramics is art.
People would look at my work and say it's highly literary, right? In a sense of like, it's very precise and controlled and stylistic. And I think you get I think when people look at that in the marketplace, there's a false dichotomy between like genre and literary.
It's funny.
I don't believe it's real.
I've been thinking this a lot because there is work that requires consideration. That's what I think. Your work requires consideration in order to be consumed. When you read a story or a thing you've written, and I think that my writing, that is like just the prose writing, also does that. Like if I take critical reviews of Automatic Age into account here, what I'm recognizing from that is that what the readers want is all the answers. I thought this book would tell me everything that I needed to know about this world. I didn't want to have to figure any of it out. I don't write that way. I write in a way that you have to figure it out. It's there. The answer is there. The correct, precise answer is present, but you got to figure it out. That's not for everyone, all right? I don't even like always reading books like that. Never mind, you know.
Well, I think the old way to think about it that has started to fall out of fashion, thankfully, is that there's a split between like people who are making art and people who are doing genre. Right. That's the old way in publishing that people thought about this. You know, horror's not literary, literary fiction is literary. Right. Now, I don't consider, for that reason, I refer to myself as a horror writer. Right. Even though my joke is that nobody agrees with me because they all think I'm an experimental poet, but I consider myself a horror writer. And I think like the industry has kind of shifted and the audience has shifted, where genre has, especially horror, has gained a level of like art film respect, you know, and like I don't know if that distinction is there anymore, but I think like there's an attitude still, and it's very easy, I think, to get caught up in this attitude in publishing or in any art industry, where there's just so many things that can kind of attach to you that have nothing to do with the work.
I think that's because, sorry, I'm cutting you off, Justin. Go ahead.
No, I've been going through my head, like thinking about different artists and different booths from like the Comic-Cons that like some have great success, but the artwork there is like I consider not professional, but they are hitting all the popularity notes to get people's attention. There's like I thought for example, there was one artist who got very, very prolific online, like super famous, hundreds of thousands of followers. And this caught the attention of a big video game company that then hired this artist to make artwork for the video game. And apparently what happened is as soon as they started working with this artist, they realized this artist has no range. They couldn't do anything other than that one trick that they did to gain this notoriety. And so for a video game company, that's kind of useless. Yeah. Like, we need you to be able to do a bunch of different things and work with us, not just do that one trick over and over again.
If it's concept art, it's about a tone and a feeling. Can you produce this tone and feeling on a space station? Can you produce it in a garden? Can you produce it in a right?
And not even like, I think they wanted that style, but they wanted different things in that style, and this artist could only do the one trick in that style.
You're right.
And so it was kind of this news item, like, big company hires this artist, and then immediately this artist is no longer working with big company. And the word on the street was like they could only do the one thing. Like they didn't have the range or the discipline to take their thing in any other direction than that one.
See, to me, like that's where you kind of
That's not a professional.
Yeah, to me, like even though you could argue, well, they're all clearly professional. They've been hired by a big company. They got a bunch of money. They're doing this full time. To me, it's not professional because you've gotten caught up in the idea of producing what the fans want. And it's not that that's bad, but if you get caught up in it, is the thing that's bad.
So
like,
we started a conversation via text the other day about this exact same thing. About would you be Gregory? If money was not an object, would you be a better artist today if you did your art just for art's sake and never for anybody else?
Right, and I often have used the expression, it's Da Vinci, but movement gives shape to form, right? And so nothing happens in a vacuum. So if I produce 10 pieces of art and I bring them to, the public marketplace in whatever form that is, and 7 of them are completely ignored, what is the likelihood that I will then put energy into those 7? I'll probably follow the 3 that struck.
But if it was just yourself in your little vacuum,
then
and those,
I'd choose the one that satisfied me the most. And I've been in that position where I am now, oh, well, nobody likes this one, so I guess I won't do any more of that. If I only have so many hours in the day to make things that also have to pay the bills, then I have to follow the interest, and that changes the way you swim through the world.
But the good side of that, I think people see that happening, and they think, oh well, this is somehow bad to be following what people want or whatever. But really, what you're talking about, though, is feedback, and they've done studies on that. Like, in order to improve, you need this feedback loop. Now, should you do everything that people tell you do? No. But you need the feedback to make your own judgment about whether or not you should be doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. Well, it's like this. I don't think it's of use to accept criticism of any kind of artistic pursuit from a person who does not also do that same or use and utilize that same set of skills. Criticism. So I mean it in a real sense. Like they're saying, don't use blue. Blue is the wrong choice here. Here is why, and let me show you another path and avenue to take. Why can I show you that? Because I do this. I have all this experience. I'm a professional in this field. Let me show you. Take that criticism. That's criticism you should take. When someone on the street says, I don't like blue, do not internalize that. Do not say, oh, well, nobody likes this piece, because they are not in the arena with you. They're not on the sand fighting for life.
But when that person walks past your booth, it does, and they don't look, like there is actually a feedback there that's useful to you, kind of, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When people don't notice,
like what they say is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, I don't like blue. It's like, well, who cares about that? But but they don't like it is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not.
Oh, I like negative feedback from people. Like if someone is, nothing hurts more than someone dismissive without a reaction. Like if they're just like, and they move on. Ouch, that hurts. But if they're like, oh, I really don't like this. Like, I would never hang this on my wall. It's too creepy. I'm like, you feel something. Ha ha, I am a wizard. I put that thought in your mind without your permission. Right?
To me, the professionalism where it comes into play with that, though, is you need to be professional about it. You need to take the reaction, assess the reaction, think about it. Is it a useful reaction? Like, you need to do a bunch of things without getting caught up in it. Yes. It's almost like a mindfulness in a way, like a career mindfulness, I guess you'd say.
Well,
so I think part of that too is I was thinking about how criticism would hit a lot harder back when I was starting out because I had only done so many things. Now I have such a robust portfolio, so many projects going on. If somebody doesn't like one piece, I kind of scoff because I have a million other things on the go and have done so many other things.
Yeah.
So you've like just having that experience and project catalog lets you take that criticism and analyze it a lot better. But when you just had that, the first art project that I had critiqued in front of the class in college, every word cut, right?
Yeah.
Like it meant so much one way or the other.
Well, and I have a great example of this, accepting criticism from a person who does the work, right? You have to accept that criticism. It can be constructive also. So I was putting together a new portfolio of prints, and I was like, I wonder what the next one will be. This is a couple of years ago. And I showed Justin, I was like, I think I'm going to develop this line. What became my fairy tale ending line and IP started as a series of black and white concept illustrations that I was sure I would develop up in the same manner that I had done all my other previous work. Add color, add texture, add all of this collage elements, add all this stuff, and like kind of busy it up. And I was like, yeah, I think I'll do these next. And Justin looks at him and he says, what, these are ready? Print these, put these out. And I was like, no.
I like clean pieces.
Right? Exactly. And he said something like that. I like clean pieces. People will like clean pieces. And I'm like, oh, I don't like clean pieces. And he said, great, but other people might. And I did an experiment where I just trusted someone who does the work, has a good eye.
We had a show coming up, and it was something where you could hit print on 10 new
That's right.
those 10 pieces right now.
Right now.
Have them ready for this weekend.
Yeah.
If you want to go that route, you can still do that, but they're not going to be ready for a couple of weeks, a month.
Couple of weeks, I'm going to miss that. So I did it, and they were very successful. And lots of people were like, I like your busy style, but these ones are so clean. Right? It's like, God, right? And that's where, I mean, in writing, that's substantive editing. That's when a person comes in and says, I know about story. Let me help you make your story better by making these changes. Every piece of art is a story. And here's Justin comes along and says, it already tells everything you need it to say. Anything else is just, self-indulgent in a way. And it would have been. Anything else I would have done would have been how I had approached the pieces I had done the previous year.
A lot of artists, a clean piece is an unfinished piece. If there's a white space, it's not done.
Fill it.
You've got to fill the whole thing.
Yeah,
especially traditional comic book art, you need a full background and your character, right? Like just a character without a background is not finished. And so I think you coming from maybe a little more that arena of traditional comics, whereas I came from graphic design where a clean piece with lots of white space like that, I love that. It gets my motor
Of course, we
going.
go back to the old comics that you love. The backgrounds are just blank. There's nothing there. It's blue.
Right.
There's a zap.
Just a Pantone sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. So, all this to be said that when we're talking about professionalism, what are those three again? Hit us again.
Well, my definition.
I know that's the ones we're
it's
kicking apart.
For writers. Again, like you have to call yourself a writer.
Okay, we do that.
You have to, and I think that's very important.
I agree.
And I think it's a hard one for a lot of people, to be honest.
Yeah.
You have to write, so actually do the work.
Yeah.
And not get caught up in other things.
So I've been kind of thinking about something along these lines recently too. And it's back when I was starting out and getting into the industry and wanting to make books, I would have ideas for books, but I knew I didn't have the discipline and skill set and focus to actually realize those ideas. So I'd get all excited about the idea, but then there'd be that sobering moment of like, well, I can't make that. I can't make that happen. And now I was walking the dog the other day and I'm thinking about how I have like a 200 plus graphic novel plan idea that I've been chipping away at for like the last year. And there's this sense of accomplishment already because I know I have the skill set.
You're going to pull it off.
I can pull it off. I'm at the place in my career that I can pull off this massive project. I can plan it out. I have the discipline to make it. Even if it doesn't get picked up by a publisher or anything, it's going to be a thing. Like it's definitive. It's going to happen. Even though there's only 2 pages that exist right now, this 200-page graphic novel will be done. And that to me makes me a professional bookmaker. I can make that story happen.
Well, and you use 2 phrases I think are good to unpack. You use the word career is a big one, right? That you have a concept of your career, which is really about understanding, to me, this is not a universal truth, but to me, the way I think of a career is understanding that the fastest way to get anywhere is slowly. Right? You have to put in a little bit of time. You have to put in a little bit of work. You have to let it build up. You have to let it build until it's there. And then you can use it for something. It's not going to just be this instant thing.
When I think of unprofessional writers and people who make comics, it's those people who always tell you about their ideas but never finish a thing.
Yeah.
Well, and they just are, I mean, I appreciate ambition. I think that's something that is out of favor in the culture right now, is ambition. Like, but I've always admired ambition. But what I think is the irony of that is like people tend to be very ambitious when they're young and new at something, but also they're too ambitious, but at the same time they're not doing any of the steps you'd actually need to do to realize the ambition, I find. So like they'll have an idea for, like, say, for like a 10-book cycle, but they're not even writing a page a day at present, you know? And it's like, well, they're like, in a weird way, they're getting caught up in their idea of what they want to be. And they're not so much focused on, you know, what they're doing. Like they want to be a writer. Right. And so to me, like the first part of my like rules or whatever you want to call it, my guideline for like professionalism is like, no, you just accept that you're a writer now, and you don't worry about, like, you should be thinking ahead to where you want to be in the future, but you don't worry about, I got to get there. I got to get there. I got to get there.
I have been in so many scenarios where, okay, so just for context for the dear listener, I, you know, do a fair amount of public speaking. I visit schools, I visit universities, I do that kind of stuff. You know, before the event I did that, and I'm sure afterwards we'll do some more. But people that come up to me and say, you know, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm just like, what do you do? Well, I'm an aspiring writer. I want to slap that word aspiring right out of their mouth. And I often verbally do. I just say, you know, I'm going to interrupt you. I know we've only just met and it's a little bit rude, but did you write something today? Yes. Did you work on it a little bit last week? Yes. I think you're a writer.
People can...
Are you going to do some tomorrow? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then I think you're a writer. You're not an aspiring writer. You're a writer.
People have such a hard time with that. And I think it's so necessary to just get in that mindset. Actually be doing the work, though, is the second part, right? Like, you can't just be calling yourself a writer and you never write anything.
Well, that's the second part, people, right?
Yeah. But like that aspiring writer thing is so hard for so many people. And I find I think it comes out of a couple of different things, but I've been thinking about this stuff a lot because my older daughter is, you know, she just finished up a poetry manuscript. She wants to like edit it and she wants to submit it. And she's like really getting serious about writing to some degree. And so I've been kind of thinking more and more of late, you know, as my career has been developing and changing and things. And I've been thinking like, well, what do I wish I knew back then, right? Or had done differently or whatever. And I think a lot of it does fall into those three piles, you know, and I was pretty good though about calling myself a writer. Like I would correct people when they introduced me as like an aspiring writer, I would correct them like at a party, and everyone thought I was being a dick to my friends.
Aspiring to what? Like that's what I usually say in these conversations. They'll be like, oh, I'm an aspiring writer. Well, aspiring to do what? They're like, well, to write. I'm like, well, you're already doing that. So just take out.
It's like an in training. I'm a writer in training.
My joke was that I aspire to nothing, and I'm already a writer. I aspire to nothing.
So your daughter's making this manuscript. Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, I don't want to get too deep into that because she may not want me talking about it.
Oh yeah,
but
fair enough.
But I've been thinking a lot about like what did I wish I knew then? Because even now I'm having problems right now in my business and my career where I can see that they're a result of not thinking ahead clearly enough, which you can't always do. You can't predict the future. But I do kind of look back and think, well, I should have known this. I should have realized that. If I sat down and took a bit more time up front, like you're talking about, I could have thought ahead a little bit. You should have written
a Cogliostra into your early life.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone who seems to know all the answers.
Well, I just am seeing more and more the value of slowing down.
Yeah,
and
like
thinking a bit more
that
fully.
Instant gratification want, right? Like especially in art, as soon as you're finished a painting. Like, I don't know as much for you, Gregory, but like, especially early on, as soon as I finished a painting, I was racing to get it uploaded online, right? To show people it's done, to get those likes and comments, and then to bring it to a show and
yeah,
show
we're different
people.
Vintages though. So I was very distrustful of that, right?
So as soon as, and like the older I get, the more I'm valuing like the slow burn of a project and like holding back that just showing everything. Like,
right.
I realize I'm very reactive, and it's doesn't serve me when I'm reactive. Like, so even like if somebody offers me a job doing something, it's better, even if I want to do it and I'm going to do it, it's better to just not say yes or no right away.
To just
think about
roll
it.
it
Do I
around.
have time to do it?
Yeah.
Or even just to put myself in a better bargaining position. Like, frankly.
Coming back to what you said, though, you are a person who is producing work at a steady rate. You enjoy the exploration of new pieces. You're always making new pieces. So putting it up for you is, when you were younger, I think, a great step, because you were already onto a new thing. So if people didn't like it, it didn't stop you from making the next piece because you're already making it, right? But people who need that instant gratification, and it needs to hit in order for them to have that dopamine to even start the next piece, the internet is a dangerous place if you need the external gratification to start the next thing.
It can be good though. Like, I think one thing that was good for me early on was having a blog and a website where I would post my work, because it got me in the habit of regularly producing and showing work.
Yeah.
So I don't think like it really was of much value otherwise.
This podcast replaced my blog as far as like my output goes.
But that practice, I think, is good, especially when you're, starting out. Like, because a lot of people have the hurdle of showing their work. A lot of people have the hurdle of they never finish, they tinker on things forever. Like that showing thing, again, it's about not getting caught up in it though. Like, I've just been almost getting like meditative about like my career. I feel like I'm like an 80-year-old man, or looking back on it now, even though what I'm really trying to do is figure out like, how am I going to shift into this new direction?
Right.
Because I just feel like it's gotten almost crushing in various areas right now. So I really need to like restructure how I do my day and how I do things. And the pandemic hasn't helped, but it has made certain things a bit more, I mean, it's forced restructuring of my day. And ultimately it's maybe not, it's really made me have to determine what I have to do and what I have chosen to do.
I can't remember where I read it, but I think about it once in a while. There's a phrase that's like, if you want to improve your life, in the modern era, it was like someone reflecting on that. Never have your picture taken with a famous person is a direct activity that can improve your life. And the idea of the practice was, if you hang around people who are seeking fame, it will lead ultimately to a lack of satisfaction in your own life. And so if you are in rooms full of people who can't wait to have their photos taken and used to promote themselves, you may find you're surrounded by people whose own self-interest is constantly ahead of whatever their relationship is, because even their identity has been commodified, right? And it's like this, there was this like, it's this idea of what is of use and how are they using it. And if someone is a writer, says I am a writer and I write, if someone is a famous person and is actively pursuing their fame, it will be to the detriment of those around them in many cases. And we've met those people. We've been at Comic-Con with those people. We've seen them around.
Famous as a result of other things. Like, I think where people get caught up,
that's where they're getting caught up in it though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
When people get caught up, for example, on social media, like they'll get caught up in the idea. I see a lot of this, and people will get obsessed about how things work on social media, or getting their social media numbers up, say. And it's like, well, that I would question why you even care about that. But like in a practical sense, I don't even mean like in an ego sense. I just think practically it doesn't make a lot of sense. But like the best way to get social media numbers up is to become famous off of social media.
Right. Off of social media.
Yes,
media. That's right.
Like that's how, those are the people who have the big following on social media. People who were famous without social media.
Right.
And so really the most effective way to improve your standing online is to do things offline.
So that there's clout in knowing you online.
Well, I always think of a Drake lyric, which I can't remember the precise lyric, but something like...
Long listeners to the podcast may think we mean Corkalicious. In this case, we're actually referring to the rapper.
Now, I'm a big rap fan. I'm not a massive Drake fan, but I'm a big rap fan. But Drake has this great line I forget the precise line, but it's to the effect that I've got fame, not clout. I don't even know what that's about. Right? Like, there's a difference between like... this sort of manufactured attention that one has sought versus, attention they've earned or have been given.
And like a tangible example of that Gregory and I have seen at like comic conventions is we'll be beside an internet famous artist that we can...
And I'll qualify that. Hundreds of thousands of followers online. They post a picture, tens of thousands of likes.
But we can outsell them all day long.
Yeah. And I'm nobody online. right? Like, you know, I have like, what, 1,500, maybe 2,000 Instagram followers, whatever.
So this kind of story, we heard more and more about people, you know, you look at their Instagram or Facebook, you're like, oh, they're a big deal. And then you talk to them about like how their art business is going, and you realize those numbers don't correlate. They don't, they're not connected.
Some do.
Some do.
There are instances where the person's practice produces, and what I found
something else
in conversation.
Though, right?
Yeah. So like their art practice, they're like, this is how I work. And I found out that like people like streaming or watching artists work. Well, I don't mind people streaming. It makes no difference. So now I'm a famous streamer, but I was doing that. I was making work anyway, and I work digitally, and I like doing that. And now thousands of people watch me. And so now when I post a link to the finished page, I sell a bunch of stuff, right? That's different than getting caught up in the other thing.
Right. And the danger of it, there's a real, I think, practical danger in getting caught up in that stuff too. Like, let's say you manage to, you know, have a Facebook account that is, I'll just use Instagram for a second. Let's imagine you have an Instagram account that somehow is massively successful. And imagine that you're doing very well with it somehow. Somehow you're getting people to buy things direct through it, and it's working really well for you. You're making a bunch of money. You're the outlier.
Or people are paying you for promotions or whatever.
What happens when they change the algorithm?
Yeah.
Your business is dead. And that's happened to people on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Many people.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's that danger in building your, you know, house on top of, you know, Mark Zuckerberg's boat.
Right.
Yeah.
or something, right? What if he just wants to knock it into the ocean?
Yeah.
Well, and we were talking off air to another guest about the idea of a company raises Series A, B financing to create a digital space that then like promises a certain amount of, you know, autonomy. Like, you're going to build it on our website, you're going to share your content, you're going to own it, you're going to benefit from it. But the back end of that company is they're actually collecting investor money. They're not interested in whether the front end is actually making money. They're only interested in whether or not it acquires users, right? And that's what the game is being played on so many of these social media platforms, is that get people to want it. In the back end, we do Series A financing, Series B, we get up to D, we sell the company to another company, and we don't care what happens next. Our goal was to make a company worth selling.
And it's not there's not opportunity in there for an artist.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't do it. It's just that, you know, you can't get caught up in it. Like, you got to have that separation between what I do as a professional and what, you know, else I'm doing in the world. You know, I just feel like in my life, when I look back on it, you know, in terms of my career, the moments I've had problems and made mistakes is when I got caught up in things. I got caught up in other things. You know, I just wasn't. Either I wasn't writing, or I was, you know, just calling myself something else. You know, I was doing I decided I want to be a musician or whatever. Or, you know,
because you made films, you've done musician, you were a musician. It's not that
those are mistakes, but I could have done the things that I did do that I should maybe not have done or have done differently. You know, like if I was keeping this kind of.
I guess it depends on, again, it comes back around to our discussion of at what point have you made it?
You never make it.
Well, and if you never make it, then all of those.
I think you have made it if you're a professional. Like, I would say you can stay a professional in like this sort of way. To me, you've made it, because I forget you were saying this on the podcast or off, but you were talking about planning your day. Like, what do you want to do in your day?
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I measure success by is the day that I want.
Yeah.
Right?
And I always talk to sometimes people where they say things to me like, oh, you know, when I retire, I'm going to write. I'm going to become a writer. And I'll stop them and I'll be like, well, what does that mean? Like, when you retire and you have this magical dream that you're going to be a writer full time now that you're retired, like, how many hours a day are you going to write? And they'll give me some, and like, they'll often just say, well, I'll just write all day. I'm like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And really what it comes down to it, the science of it, and also usually people's desire is like 3 hours a day. Beyond 3 hours a day, the science is, for the most part, people don't benefit from working that additional amount of time on their creative project. Now, you know, everyone's different, but like, broadly speaking, that's the science of it. And most people, like, that's their limit. They want to work in the morning. It's interesting you say that, because I work
about 3 hours at a stretch, and I often switch between writing, layouts, and then finished illustration. So I might work 9 hours, 10 hours in a day,
Sure, you'll.
but
do
every
other
3
things.
hours it's very different.
But after, like 3 hours of story breaking, then I need to move on to something like grunt work, painting, like
Yeah.
just, coloring.
I
kind of
like that
thing.
you call painting
But a
your
lot of people don't
grunt
even
work.
want to do that much.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to write for like an hour, 2 hours a day. They're fine. That's what they want to have in their life. And it's like, well, you don't need to retire to work. Do something for 2 hours a day.
I feel like if you haven't built up that
What a
hobby
wa-
by the time you retire,
Right?
like you're in trouble too.
Well, you
that's
also, you won't have the
perfect.
skills, but it's harder and harder to learn how to do it well.
If you really want to be a writer, you're going to find time in your day to do it. Like the reason I always knew like this, I was going to be doing this kind of thing is like when I worked in a farm, when I worked as a designer, every free hour of my time was spent drawing or doing the kind of stuff that I'm now doing for a living. Like it was always, that fire was always burning.
Right. Well, so this comes back. One time, a very sharp person who I gave a hard time for being an aspiring writer, I said, they're like, "Oh, I'm an aspiring writer." It's like, "No, you're not. You're a writer. What do you aspire to then?" I'm like, "Well, I want people to read my writing, which no one's doing now. Yes, I write, but in my mind, no one's reading it, and so I'm not a writer." I'm like, "Well, that's a different verb, right? That's not the same thing. You're talking about you aspire to being published. That's a fine aspiration. To introduce yourself and say, I'm a writer who aspires to being published. Now everyone you meet in the writing community can help you. Oh, I know some publishers. I know an editor. I know a substantive editor. I know a copy editor.
No one can help you write.
No one can help you write, but they can help you get published.
People can tell you how to write better. They can tell you what's wrong with your writing. They can tell you what's good about it. But they can't just put your ass in a chair and make you write.
They can't tell you how to finish.
Right.
You need to finish.
So if someone says, I'm an aspiring artist, you say, well, no, you are an artist. If you're making art, what do you aspire to do with that art? I want to get my work in galleries. Oh, well, I might be able to help you do that part. Right? I can't help you with the work.
Are you professional enough to have 10 to 15 pieces done by the time that gallery
That's
opens,
right.
though?
Yeah.
That's, I think.
But that's the question that now opens and scaffolds out of rejecting the idea that you have to aspire to do the thing. You have to aspire what you're doing with the thing, right?
No, you have to do it. Like you were saying, Justin, you would fill your free time in this way. I almost did it in a different. I think I did the same thing in a different way. Because what I realized when I was younger was I just, this is what I wanted to do. And I wasn't sure how to do it precisely. We just didn't have the resources, the educational resources then, right? Like I was in a small town. There was no real internet. Like it was just kind of coming in. The internet was just Nirvana lyrics and boobs. Like that was it.
Yeah.
Right? People don't understand. And it was like,
well, I don't know. When the
Dead
internet
Cow
started for
Society or
me,
whatever.
it was ordering books from one library and sending them to a different library.
well,
If I had known there were those two other things on there,
yeah.
maybe I would have been different.
well, but what I did though, what I decided was like, there's a big question mark. It was like in South Park, it was like, something I want to write, question mark, profit,
Right, yeah.
I didn't know what the question mark was, but I knew the first part, right? I knew if I just keep writing and I keep doing it, if this is I want this to be my job, so I have to treat it like my job. And so I would just do it. Like the way I would think about it is like survival is my side hustle. Like, right? Like my job is to be a writer and an artist. And like on the side, I'm going to survive. On the side, I'll make enough to do this and that. But that's on the side. My thing I'm going to do first is write this story. And then I'll figure out how to get some ramen noodles.
Is this just from the movies, or have you guys come across somebody who like never wrote but always wanted to be a writer, and then finally actually did sit down one day and write their novel, and that actually was a success?
Haruki Murakami did it. So it does happen. But
It does happen?
It's weird outliers,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, like people who always talk about making a comic, and then when they finally do, it's more successful than yours. Like,
Yeah, I hope there are people who, when they finally do it, it's amazing.
right?
But do you want to bank
That's
on,
my dream.
Do you
But
want
that
to
is
bank
not
on,
likely.
That doesn't
I know
happen.
one guy,
Yeah.
Justin. So Guy Madden, who is a filmmaker, writer-filmmaker. Guy Madden took an economics in school. He became the province's, I think, youngest bank manager, and he would go to the bank.
So by all
the way he told-
metrics of that era, a
Yep, very
successful man.
successful. The way that he would describe it to me, he's told me once he would come in the bank every morning and he would like wave to like the employees and he would go, I gotta go in the vault for a minute, Cindy. He'd go in the vault, close the door, and cry because he hated it so much. He hated his whole life, everything about it. He had all the outside markers of success, but he couldn't stand it. And he didn't know what he wanted to do. He ended up going do some night courses at the University of Manitoba, did some film courses, learned a little bit about filmmaking.
Did what so many people do. They don't know what,
film.
so they take some night courses.
But here's the thing. Here's the difference between Guy Man and a lot of other people. Picked up the camera, made a film. Turns out he was a genius. It turns out he was a genius at filmmaking, became a world-renowned filmmaker.
See, that annoys me. I like the stories where he, has been chipping away at it since he was a kid.
He worked hard. I don't mean he worked hard, but it just like there was an element of luck in there, right? Like where it's like it was at a time when you could become a success on the midnight movie circus. It was at a time when Greenwich Village would play your film every night for a year, which is what happened to his Gimli. It was at a time when this, that, and the other thing, and it just so happened that he just kind of figured out like, oh, this is the thing. Like, not to downplay like his work, but there was that level of like genius there that nobody would have expected it to come out of him. He didn't expect it to come out of himself. And then it just turned out that it all worked out in that.
But the story,
there's a lot of work that went into it, but like,
here's the thing. When you're saying you wish that he had worked harder at it,
Oh,
if you're crying in a bank vault, you've actually been working harder at figuring out what's inside you that needs to come out.
I just think all of us have worked really hard to get good at what we're doing. Like in the movie, that moment where the kid picks up the Rubik's Cube and can immediately like figure it out, or picks up the sword and is immediately good at it. Like I don't like that. I like the montages of training.
So what you're saying is that you don't like the idea that the human experience has range. And that you might only be in the middle of that range.
The instant gratification is like, oh, I have this secret talent that I've just unlocked, and now I'm better than all these people who have been doing it for years.
Even those people, though, need to like
try things.
They need. So I had I have this friend Christian Book. He's like a writer. He's actually until Leonard Cohen and Jewel, or Leonard Cohen and somebody else recently beat him, but he was. He wrote the fastest selling book of poetry in Canadian history. And he's now created a genetic organism that is also a poem.
This story.
So Christian, the DNA thing,
Christian's like, savant level, like genius. But his big turning point was when he went into the library and he got a book by Steve McCaffrey called The Black Debt. It's like this weird, like, hard to find like experimental book of Canadian writing, and he read and he's like, what the fuck is this? And he's like, this is the most idiot, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And he'd never felt that way in his whole life. He'd never read a book and not understood it. And then he's like, well, I need to do this. Right? Like he hated it so much, but he's like, I have to pursue this because and like he turned everything to that. So like even the people who have like that innate, genius or talent, which I don't think there's that many of them, and I don't think it's worth trying to, aspire to being one. But like even those people have to really get the drive, or they have to find the thing. They have to come across it.
Karate Kid is a good example. I hated that the Karate Kid could beat the Cobra Kai guys. Those guys trained so hard for years, and this kid comes along, washes some cars.
See, but as a former educator or a current educator, depending, I love the idea that he had the right teacher, and so he kicked those guys' ass.
It's all about
after 2 weeks of barely training.
No, he's 2 weeks on each car, and then 2 weeks on the fence.
Was it the boat?
And then 2 weeks standing on the. Yeah, it's the attitude he had. Yeah, the attitude. Yeah.
But I just think like the more and more I look at like what I'm doing or what I did or what I think I should do next, like I just feel like there's a level of like attention and mindfulness that I need to apply to it, if that makes sense. Like, and I need to be less reactive, and I wish that I had learned younger that what would really matter was not all the things I thought, like, and getting caught up in things, because as you say, like as you kind of start to learn it more as you do it more.
Yeah, what are the things you get caught up? Could you like expand on that? Like what kind of things?
I mean, it's different for everybody, right? Like for me, like a lot of when I catch myself getting caught up in other things, it's often like, for example, trying to plan out what I'm going to do with the thing. So like I'm writing a book and I'm like, well,
Oh, yeah.
maybe I should send it to this person. Maybe I should send it to that person. What if I publish it this way? What if I do that?
You're
I'll start
planning
to
out
think,
the final, like some of the final steps.
yeah. And it's not that you shouldn't think about that stuff
Mhm.
from an artistic standpoint, but I think like it's easy to get caught up in it, right?
Yes. I'm the project I'm working on right now, I'm building like a Kickstarter campaign to go with it. And I catch myself like, okay, you spent like 2 days on a campaign and you've only done like 2 pages of the book. So you need to get back to making the book before
you talk about
I
selling
totally
it to
know
other
exactly
people.
what
And
you're
it's
talking
natural
about.
for it to happen. I think
When I was starting out writing,
catching yourself.
I will say, I would go to writers' conventions. Very different than comic conventions. The writers' convention often are kind of like this. It'd be like writers speaking or having conversations together at the front of room, and aspiring writers sitting and listening and then asking questions, and a lot more learning. And so it's based often literary conventions
How
or
long
writing
does it take you to
conventions are
write a
like that.
book?
Yeah, all that those kind of questions. But the stuff people get caught up in the parties after. So there's a whole ecosystem there where you go all day and you learn from stuff, and then there's suites at the hotels that are lavishly decorated sometimes or not, and everyone goes and mingles and parties and whatever, and you meet editors and publishers, across the bar or across a chilled beer instead of in the formal setting. There's some bad scenes that arrive because of that, for sure. And those are the things people are getting caught up in. What room am I going to be in? Am I going to be in the room with the big publisher? I heard that person's a great agent. If I can impress them, then I'll have made it. Oh, if I am seen talking to this person in front of that
I know these
person,
people and I don't like these people.
Everybody, it's natural to start leaning in that direction at times, right? And everybody knows the person who's too obsessed with their career, right? But like, I think, it's not that you should discount or discredit doing something with your career, but like it's just so easy to get caught up in it, right? Like and I just feel like there's this I always think of like in exactly those rooms, Gregory, like at the Writers Festival. Yeah. I've been in them, and you all know instantly who you don't want to talk to. You know what I mean? Like as soon as they start talking to you, it's because they're not even talking about like you or them or anything anymore. They're just talking about their career.
Yeah, they're navigating a way in which you can be of use to them if you're impressed by them.
How can you help me get ahead?
Yeah.
And what is hard for people to understand, because I think it's professionals get caught up in this, like so-called professionals, right? Like the famous industry types will get caught up in it, but also like the real like I've just starting out, person will get caught up in this. People think there's a magic bullet or a straight shot or a shortcut, but there's if you talk to real pros, like I did a year where I did a lot of like Zoom calls with like famous people for a better lack of, like, there'd be some charity auction to talk to Brian Bennis. I'm like, I'll talk to Brian Bennis, and like things like that. And like when you talk to the real pros, like, so I was like, talk to Brian Bendis. I talked to Matt Wagner. I talked to a bunch of people that I would consider like true professionals, people I admire who have been doing it forever.
Yeah.
And
comics royalty.
People, and there's other people in this call, right? And I'm just kind of there, paying attention as much as I can. And then people are asking their questions. And you listen to the questions they ask, and it's very telling, right? Because the questions are always about a shortcut. What's the shortcut? What's the shortcut? And they all have the same answers. Like a real pro has the same answer, which is like, I don't know, man, like send your stuff around. Like the fact is like there's nothing they can tell you that will help, because the work is what will get you somewhere.
Yeah.
And people lose sight of that. People lose sight of the fact that, the work is the thing that if it's bad work, no agent can save you.
Yeah.
And if it's good work, you don't need the agent. I mean, maybe you should have an agent, right? It'll help you. And
it helps you not get caught up in other things.
Exactly. You let the agent get caught up in those other things.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's this people feel like there's a scaffolding around art, and it's easy to get caught up in the scaffolding, and hang yourself there by accident, or like just get stuck on it. And now you're, adding scaffolding to scaffolding and not really making something. But that thing you were supposed to be making is the thing that's going to cut through it all. Because everybody else who's out there, even on like the level of competition with other artists, and like competition with other artists is real and fake, right?
Yeah.
But like even on the level of like, if somebody's looking to hire one of these 20 people, Or if you're submitting your work to a publisher and they've got a big slush pile, like the way you stand out in all those ways is by just focusing on that work and doing something kind of different and interesting and unusual. Like where I call my podcast Writing the Wrong Way, and I really try to present that idea, writing the wrong way, is like, I think like what people have a hard time understanding is that when you're getting all that feedback from people and you're getting all that criticism, what you really need to look for when you're young or starting out or whatever, however old you are, is you need to look for, well, what are people reacting badly to? But I like that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And and what if I just doubled down on it and did it better? So maybe I'm not doing maybe I'm not using blue right, but what if I found a way to use blue right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's where you really break through. Like I always think about when we're getting criticism from some of your like heroes. They're like, well, this isn't comics. You know, it's not like a normal comic would do this, a normal comic would do that. And like, I'm sure it was crushing for you, but like at the same time, like you doubled down and like into like,
I was like,
I'm going to keep making non-normal comics.
Yeah. For me, in those instances, it was always, okay, I acknowledge from a person who is doing this work that they see this is not how the work is done. And if their criticism is then on this gets between me and understanding the story, that's valid criticism. So I would say, okay, so if I'm going to do it differently, I have to do it differently, but better. Because the goal of the page is to bring you to the next page of the story. So I can do that better. I'm not going to change my entire art practice because you don't like how I draw or composite images, but I will change how clarity is approached or demanded from the work.
Yeah,
that is a valid
the rise
criticism.
of indie comics, just that realization like, oh, it doesn't need to be the perfect Marvel or DC way to tell a story. Like, this guy can barely draw, but I'm loving this story.
Yeah.
And if he can do it, then like I can maybe do it.
But if you're caught up in success means working for Marvel, or you're caught up in like,
then you talk to anybody who works for Marvel and DC, and they're not always the happiest people.
You're not always.
Yeah,
Some are happy.
Yes.
It is your mileage may vary, I think.
Well, it starts to get into like, what do you want out of your career? What do you want for your art?
I'd be
What do you want
happy
for
to
your
work
day?
for Marvel or DC. I'd be happy to have worked for Marvel or DC. I don't consider it my goal to work for Marvel and DC. I consider that to be getting caught up in stuff.
Yeah, if you got the opportunity to do Batman,
Yeah.
you'd assess
I
it.
wouldn't say no.
It's a nice feather
Right?
to have in your cap.
Yeah.
Right?
I would ask how long, how many pages, how's it going to impact the other things that I want to do? Because my day is the important unit. When
Yeah.
I wake up, do I get time with my family? Do I get time to write? Do I get time to draw things that I want? Then I also have time of things I must accomplish.
And
right?
it would be hard, right? It'd be hard to not get caught up in, oh my God, Batman. It'd be hard not to get, just like it's hard not to get caught up in somebody's criticism of you or praise of you, right? But I think like the discipline that you really have to develop in many ways is not just the discipline of working, but the discipline of like not getting caught up and not reacting immediately and just like assessing, okay, well, how could I do Batman? Will it fit into my day? Is it going to work for me? Is it a smart move long term? Like, you know, or even just like on a simple level, is it going to satisfy like what I want to do artistically? Like I've gotten to know the things
I've thought
I
about
want to do
Batman, by the way,
artistically.
just as an aside. If I got offered Batman, I'd want to do like a 300-page detective story.
Oh.
Yeah.
See,
I'd
I've got
want
a
to put the
great Spider-Man
detective.
pitch.
He's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, and mostly they show him throwing batarangs and swinging around, kicking people in the face. I want him to do some crime solving
Yeah.
from a long form detective. Remember that old show, The Killing, where they're trying to solve this one murder like for an entire season? It was like procedural drama that they'd never
Yes.
solved
Okay,
the
yeah, I
crime.
did see it, yeah.
I'd want to do that. The Killing plus Batman, I could do that graphic novel.
That's the way to do it, Batman, for sure.
Right. But I'd be better, I think, at writing it than drawing it. I could write that better than I could draw in the DC style.
Yeah, I've got a great Spider-Man story that I don't think I could draw, but Spider-Man breaks his leg and does like a rear window thing where he like sees a whole bunch of
Spider-Man
things
Rear Window
happening.
would be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Spider-Man rear window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, like
if you're listening, Marvel, DC.
well, what I've realized for myself is that what I'm interested in is unconventional storytelling methods. So like I'm interested in narrative voice that is unconventional. I'm interested in really specific things. And so like, if I get, offered something, or if I have the opportunity to do something, like I got to figure out how is it going to work into what I'm doing, because otherwise it just, you won't do it. Basically, you won't do a good job. You won't do it well. You won't do it fast enough. Like you just have to figure out as early as you can, I think, like, okay, I'm a writer, so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to focus on it, and I'm not going to let my day job get in the way of it. If it does, I'll quit my day job. Like that's the attitude I always took. So it's maybe not the attitude everyone should
But
take.
you mean survival being your side hustle, you'll still talk yourself out of quitting the day job if your side hustle is still to eat ramen noodles. You'll need it.
Well, I mean, I would literally quit the jobs. Like I would walk out of a job and never come back because it was cutting into my creative time. Like that's what I used to do. Now, when I started to have kids and stuff and it got more expensive, I toned it down.
Yeah.
I remember you tell a story. I don't know if you ever told it on the podcast. You tell a story of your last $5.
Yeah. So when I was younger, I had $5 in my pocket. I was down to my last $5. Like that's all I had in my world. Was $5.
How old were you?
I was maybe 19, 20.
Okay.
And I remember like
living on your own, like in the city.
Yeah,
like
I had $20, and I was down to $5. And I remember looking at my bank, and it was probably less than that if you counted like the debt I had at the time. Like I had $5 in my pocket, and I remember like looking at it, thinking in my head, like, this is the last $5 that I have. That's it. Like, how pathetic is this? And then I threw it in the street. I was like, fuck it. I might as well have no money. It's a better story if I don't have any money.
Yeah,
because I can always make more money. Like I always had that in my head. Like I could always make more money, and if I can't, then I don't deserve
even
to
this
be doing
$5.
This. I don't deserve. Yeah, it's like, and it's kind of like that idea. Like you can always make more money. Like it sounds weird to say it and it sounds privileged to say it, but it's true. Like you can always make another piece of art. You can always make more money. If you fuck this one up, you can make another.
And you can take jobs you don't want as your side
Sure.
hustle for survival if you're gonna, to use that
and
framework.
if you lose the job, you can get another one.
Yeah, because it's your side hustle. You don't have to get caught up in the identity that your job provides. If you're a writer or you're an artist and these jobs are just your means to that end, then you can happily go to work, quote unquote, happily.
Yeah.
Do a shitty job for a while, knowing that I'm not invested in this
Yeah, don't
crappy
get caught
job.
up in it. You can do a good
Just
job.
my survival.
But just don't get invested in it in the same way, right? Like,
Sure.
it's like I knew that the five, because I even had at the time, I think, this weird little tiny bit of like, okay, if I overinvest and I only have $5, which is what I'll do, and if I obsess about how I'm down to only $5, then that's going to ruin me. But if I just get rid of it, and I don't have to worry about the $5, I don't have to worry about any money anymore because I don't have any.
Anything else that happens now becomes a positive.
Yeah.
If you found a quarter, you're like, wow, I used to have nothing.
I'm just going up, and like I'm not necessarily the most positive person in the planet, but I recognize like the value of that like abundance mentality, and you can't get trapped in that scarcity thinking because it'll destroy you.
Well, so if you are a creative person, you're a writer, you're an artist, you have to call yourself the thing you want to be. You have to do that thing all the time. You have to not get caught up in the stuff around. And I think that I've greatly enjoyed our conversation, Jonathan Ball. This has been Super Pulp Science. I'm Gregory Komichek, and I'm encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.